All right, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's a strategic vision from India's top policy think tank, Niti Aayog. They're looking at one of the biggest buzzwords out there, blockchain, and asking a really important question. How do we take this from just hype to a real practical tool for a country with more than a billion people? So let's start with a question that sounds simple, but really isn't. What does it actually take to make a pencil? I mean, think about it. You've got the wood, right? The graphite, the paint, that little metal bit at the end. It takes literally thousands of people all over the world working together. And the crazy part is, most of them will never, ever meet. And for that whole massive, invisible dance to work, you need one crucial ingredient: trust. Now, for most of human history, we've gotten that trust from intermediaries. Banks, governments, regulators. They're the referees, the ones who make sure everyone's playing by the rules. But, and this is a big but, relying on a central referee creates its own huge set of problems. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter, the problem with these old-school, centralized ways of creating trust. Look, they can be incredibly slow, super expensive, and honestly, kind of murky, especially when you're talking about an economy as massive and complex as India's. And this isn't just a minor headache. It has huge, real-world impacts on how business actually gets done. Just look at this number, 163. What is that? Well, in 2020, out of 190 countries, that's where the World Bank ranked India on enforcing contracts. I mean, wow. That one number tells you almost everything you need to know. It's a huge red flag that the old ways of ensuring trust are just buckling under the pressure. So let's break down what that really means. What are the challenges? Well, for one, these systems can be open to corruption. They get totally bogged down in paperwork and slow, clunky processes. The cost can be enormous, and you often have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. There's zero transparency. Plus, if that one central point fails, the whole system can come crashing down. It's no wonder it's hard to improve the ease of doing business score. Okay, so this is where blockchain comes into the story. But hold on, let's just forget all the hype and the technical jargon for a second. At its absolute core, blockchain isn't really about computers or code. It's about trust. Think of it as a trust machine. It's a whole new way to get people to collaborate, but without needing that central referee we talked about. So what is it really? The easiest way to think about it is like a shared digital notebook. But this notebook has some superpowers. First, it's distributed, meaning everyone in the group has their own identical copy. It's transparent, so everyone can see what's written in it. It's secure, because it's locked with some really strong digital locks. And maybe the most important part, it's immutable. Once you write something down, it's there forever. You can't erase it or change it. And this table really just lays it all out. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about trust. We're moving away from a centralized world where you have to put your faith in a big institution to a decentralized one where the trust is literally built into the software itself. You're not trusting a person, you're trusting the code. And that means you can replace those slow, murky, expensive processes with something fast, clear, and automatic. Okay, but let's get real for a minute. Blockchain is not a magic wand you can wave at every single problem. There's been so much hype, and honestly, it's led a lot of people and companies down a dead-end street. So you absolutely need a smart, practical way to figure out where this technology actually makes sense and where it's just overkill. The paper has this great term for it, pilot purgatory. You've probably seen this happen. It's where all these cool-sounding blockchain experiments get launched, but they never go anywhere. They just get stuck as a proof of concept forever and never actually solve a real problem. Why? Because they started with the technology, not with a clear problem that needed solving. So to avoid that purgatory, Niti Aayog came up with this really simple, super practical checklist. It's basically a set of questions you have to ask before you even write a single line of code. First, are you trying to cut out middlemen? Second, do a bunch of different people need to add information to the same shared record? Third, can the thing you're tracking, whether it's money or a product or a document, be turned into a digital token? And finally, do you absolutely need a permanent, unchangeable record of everything? If you're nodding yes to these, well, then you might just have a winner. All right, enough with the theory. Let's see how this stuff works in the real world. Because the best way to really get it is to look at an actual problem in India, where they put this exact framework to the test. And that brings us to fertilizer. Yeah, I know, but stick with me. We're talking about the government's fertilizer subsidy program. This is a huge, critical program for millions of farmers in India, involving a massive supply chain. But behind the scenes, it was an absolute mess of inefficiency. So, what did that mess look like? Well, for starters, it could take 3 or 4 months just to process a subsidy claim. You had information trapped in different computer systems that didn't talk to each other. Everything was still being done on paper. There was just no single place where everyone, the government, the manufacturer, the shipper, the farmer, could look and see the same trusted information. So, what was the fix? They built a blockchain system. And what did it do? It created that single shared notebook we talked about, one that was totally tamper-proof. Suddenly, everyone in the entire supply chain, from the moment the fertilizer left the factory right up until it was sold to a farmer, was looking at and updating the exact same record on one single platform. And the results? I mean, they were just staggering. Look at this. Things that used to take weeks, like confirming a shipment arrived, now took minutes. Tedious manual paperwork was replaced with near real-time updates. The paper trail? Gone. 100% digital. And all that mind-numbing data entry was cut down to just a couple of clicks. It's just a perfect example of what's possible. A success like that, of course, gets you thinking bigger. It points to a much grander vision. But going from one successful pilot to scaling this across the entire country, well, that's a whole different ballgame. So what does that road ahead actually look like? Well, there are some pretty big hurdles to clear. First, the data you put on the blockchain has to be perfect. You know the saying, garbage in, garbage out? It's a huge deal here. Then you've got to somehow connect this new tech with all the old, clunky government systems that already exist. Laws and regulations have to be changed, it costs money to get started, and you have to find and train people who actually know how to build and run this stuff. But the ultimate vision here is incredibly ambitious. The paper floats this idea of a national blockchain, something they call India Chain. Think about that. A single public digital highway for trust for the whole country. It would be just like Aadhaar for identity or UPI for payments, a foundational layer that everyone, both in government and private business, can plug into and build on top of. And that really leaves us with one final massive question. We started by talking about how a simple pencil needs this incredible web of global trust just to exist. So, what could an entire nation of over 1 billion people build if it had a brand new digital foundation for trust itself? It's a pretty mind-blowing thought, and the answer could really shape the next chapter of India's story. Thanks for tuning in.